This is Slow Productivity by Cal Newport. It's made up of 5 chapters. The first 2 chapters are the foundations and what led the author to write this book. The next 3 chapters are the principles of slow productivity, so that's 1 chapter for each principle. I'll go through each of the chapters in some detail, starting with chapter 1, the rise and fall of pseudo productivity. The term productivity can be traced back to agriculture, where for a farmer, the productivity of a given parcel of land is the amount of food that the land produces. Another example that Cal gives is during the Industrial Revolution, where the productivity of factories that produce automobiles is the number of automobiles produced per paid hour of labor. If we know exactly what defines productivity in our line of work, the easier it is for us to implement systems and processes that help improve productivity. For example, farmers can improve productivity by using a smarter crop rotation system, while factory owners can improve productivity by moving to assembly line production. When Henry Ford shifted to an assembly line production method, he found that the labor hours required to produce a single automobile dropped from 12.5 to 1.5 hours, which is a 90% improvement, and this spurred economic growth during that period. However, fast forward to now, most of us work in office jobs in the knowledge sector with no clear single input to track like amount of food per parcel of land. Back when I was working in my office job as a credit analyst, you would think that my main objective was credit reports, right? But no, that actually took up less than half of my time. On top of that, I also had SOPs to draft, data entry for everything I did because the company was kind of old school and didn't really have good enough systems. I also had meetings to attend, minutes to write, and every week I would get ad hoc stuff from different departments that I never actually signed up for, but I was roped in to do it because my boss wanted me to do it. Now, without concrete productivity metrics in an office setting, Cal argues that a simple alternative has emerged using visible activity as the primary means for measuring actual productivity. The more face time I give you in the office, the harder you'd think I was working. And that, my friends, is pseudo productivity. Next, Cal argues that the sustainability of pseudo productivity has quietly but rapidly degraded, hence the fall of pseudo productivity. And the cause of this deterioration is the arrival of network computers in the office. In a setting where activity provides a proxy for productivity, the introduction of tools like email that make it possible to visibly signal your busyness with minimal effort leads to more and more of the average knowledge worker's day being dedicated to not working, but talking about work as fast and frantically as possible. And the arrival of laptops and smartphones allow us to demonstrate effort beyond the workday, following us at home late at night as what you might have experienced during the pandemic. And this leads to us being more and more burnt out every single day. That begins the fall of pseudo-productivity, which leads us to the next chapter, Chapter 2, a slower alternative. In Rome, 1986, McDonald's planned to open a new restaurant, and it was going to be massive with seating for over 450 people. The backlash to this was huge, and a new movement called slow food was born. There are 2 big ideas underpinning this new slow food movement. One, this is a powerful and appealing alternative that many people enjoy, a huge contrast to the non-nutritious and fast food that McDonald's serves. And 2, this movement actually drew from time-tested traditions such as communal dining that has been common in Italian villages for many years, and using not just fresh but traditional ingredients that your ancestors might have served. The same can be applied to knowledge workers. 1, instead of pseudo-productivity, a powerful and appealing alternative is slow productivity. And 2, Cal Newport draws from time-tested ideas, and you'd find routines from Jane Austen and so many more in this book. With that, this is the framework for slow productivity. First, do fewer things. Second, work at a natural pace. And third, obsess over quality. Let's dig into the first principle here with the next chapter, and that's chapter 3, do fewer things. Jane Austen was a prolific novelist known for writing her novels on scraps of paper during any possible time squeezed out of her busy schedule. This, however, isn't the most accurate. Cal goes on to prove that it was only after Austen's family deliberately cleared their schedules of social events and freed Jane from most household chores that she was able to complete her manuscripts of all her most popular books like Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, and more. Basically, the epitome of doing fewer things. Now, applying this to our modern workplace, why exactly should knowledge workers do fewer things? 2 reasons why. First, every new project you take on comes with a certain amount of administrative overhead in the form of emails and meetings. This is what Cal calls overhead tax. As the number of projects you work on grows, so does the total amount of overhead tax, which will take away more and more time from your deep work on your projects. Here's a simple example that Cal gives. Imagine that you produce reports that your company sells. It takes 7 hours of work to complete a single report, and each report generates 1 hour per day of overhead tax until it's completed. If you take on 1 report per day, it takes only 1 day to complete the report. So 4 reports takes just 4 days. But if you take on these 4 reports at the same time, you're losing 4 hours per day to overhead tax. In total, it'll take you a whopping 7 days to complete all 4 reports, which is almost double the amount of time. And second, just having fewer things on our daily to-do list makes us feel less stressed, less rushed, and overall less miserable. Now that we've answered the question of why, how exactly do knowledge workers do fewer things? Cal gives 3 main propositions here with many sub-propositions, and I'll try to give you a breakdown of everything right now. Proposition 1, limit the big. This involves applying limits to these 3 different scales of work at the same time: missions, projects, and daily tasks. A mission is any ongoing goal or service that directs your professional life. Limit your missions to at most 3, preferably 2, and 1 is the most ideal. For me, as a content creator who is currently focusing on YouTube, I've only got 2 channels, so I guess 2 overarching missions. I've got this one that you're watching right now, and I've also got another one that I've been working on for the past 3 years or so. That's kind of ticking away nicely now, earning me passive income every day. It would have been absolute madness to start both of these from scratch at the same time, and I would not recommend that at all. A project is any work-related initiative that cannot be completed in a single session, and each project creates many different concrete tasks that take up your time during the day. For my YouTube channel, the other one, not this one, each big, high-quality video that I produce takes about 2 months of original research, original testing, and original ideas. I found that 2 months is about the sweet spot for me. Any slower would be too slow and not good for the growth of my channel, and any faster would dilute the quality of my work. So yeah, in 1 year, I only get to tackle about 5 to 6 main projects. Not a lot, but it's been enough to push my channel along. Now we get to limiting daily goals, and this is the smallest scale of work. Cal recommends here to work on at most 1 project per day. And that's mostly what I tend to do as well. Like if I'm doing research and testing, I do that for the entire day. Scripting and getting all my ideas to flow together, that takes entire days too. Then filming, I do that the entire day. You get the idea. Just 1 main goal for the day. Proposition 2, contain the small. By freeing yourself from the constraints of the small, you can invest more meaningfully on the big. There are like 5 different mini ideas under this proposition, and I'll try to go through each one with you. The first is putting tasks on autopilot. So basically, you assign regularly occurring work or tasks to specific times on specific days. Like maybe clearing email at one go every 30 minutes before you end work, or replying to YouTube comments every Friday afternoon, or doing all household chores from 8 to 10 p.m. every night. At least that's kind of what my schedule looks like. The more you do this stuff on autopilot, the less headspace you need to think about them. The next mini idea here is to synchronize. What this means is to regularly schedule sessions for quick, real-time, in-person discussions by clearing up issues in person that can save you many hours of back and forth emailing. After that, we've got make other people work more. That's the next mini idea. What we got to do here is to create a public task list for each major category of tasks that you tackle in your job. When someone asks you to take on a small obligation, direct them to add themselves to that task list by writing it down. Also, make it clear that all the info you need to complete the task should be included in that entry. This requires people to work more and spend more time specifying what exactly they need from you. They can easily access the list to see the status of the tasks, and if they see an overstuffed task list, they may think twice about asking you to do more work. The next mini idea is avoiding task engines. A task engine is a generator of numerous urgent small things to do, like loads of meetings, emails, and back and forth exchanges. Take these two projects as an example. If you had to choose between writing a detailed credit report on something or organizing a one-day team bonding exercise for the entire company, which is the task engine here that will take up way more of your time in the end? That's the team bonding exercise, because you've got to call up different service providers, find the best rates, write a proposal, get approvals, find out the best day that everyone's the least busy, coordinating between different events, etc., etc. That's why it's the task engine. It gives you a crap ton of tedious tasks. The report, on the other hand, requires much more mentally stimulating work and much less tedious daily tasks. And the last mini idea, which is spending money, is basically outsourcing tasks. You can use either people or software for this. For example, I've got an editor right now who's editing this entire video and frees up a few days per week of my time by doing so. So everything you see here, he's edited. I've also got software that I pay for every month, so like editing software, budgeting, tech software, and so on. The next proposition, so proposition 3, is to pull instead of push. So basically this means that you pull in work only when you have the capacity to do so, and not just allow people to push work onto you once they've done their part. There are 3 steps to pulling in work instead of pushing, and step 1 is holding tank and active lists. So what you have here is a list divided into 2 different sections, holding tank and active. When a new project is pushed towards you, place it in the holding section of your list. There's no limit to your holding tank. You can have as many projects here as you need to. The active list, however, should be limited to 3 projects at most. This is what you're currently focusing on and spending your time on, which is limited only to a small number of things. And only when you finish one of these projects here should you remove it from the list and then pull in another project from the holding tank. Now, your colleagues may not realize that you have this list and may keep bothering you about their tasks, which may be in the holding tank. And that's where we get to step 2, which is the intake procedure. Whenever you add a new project to your holding tank, send an acknowledgement message which contains these 3 pieces of extra information: additional details that are necessary, the number of projects you have on hand, and an estimate of when you expect this work to be done. Here's the perfect acknowledgement message that Cal gives in his book. You can pause the video here to take a look. The benefit of this is humongous. It's super common for a boss to just kind of like shoot an idea off to you on a whim that he had that day. But when this request gets formalized and needs more info, plus they actually see you're currently overloaded, they may withdraw the request. And step 3 is list cleaning, which should happen about once a week. What you should do here is to pull in new work if you have the capacity in your active list, review upcoming deadlines for anything in your holding tank so you have a rough gauge of how urgent they are, and also my favorite, remove any projects that might have become redundant so that your holding tank looks a little bit more free and you're less overwhelmed. Chapter 4, the second principle of slow productivity, work at a natural pace. Before we get to the how, why exactly should knowledge workers work at a more natural pace? Cal draws from ancient wisdom, not just from the greats of history like Galileo, Isaac Newton, and Marie Curie. He even goes through research on hunter-gatherers and found that the general trend is that most of them actually enjoy half of their daylight hours at leisure. For example, they may have a busy start to each day fishing in the open waters, but enjoy a long nap during the day when they're tired. A hunting trip may be followed by multiple days in the rain, waiting, just doing very little. Basically, what Cal calls seasonal work. The work that we knowledge workers do is much more intense all day long, day after day, And honestly, in these 6 years I worked an office job, I never saw anyone ever enjoy an afternoon siesta. We were just forced to sit there, and during the 2 to 4 p.m. hours where the food coma was the heaviest. Now, the first proposition or suggestion here that Cal gives is to take longer. And the first mini suggestion under this subsection here is to make a 5-year plan. Most people plan in days, weeks, or at most months. However, it also helps to plan on a larger scale of what you'd like to accomplish in the next few years. Let's say you've got a full-time job, but you'd like to start a YouTube channel on the side to see if you can make money online. What I'd recommend, which is what I'd also tell myself, is to not expect any results in the first, conservatively, 3 years. So during the busy periods of your job where you can't work on your YouTube channel, you can still tolerate it and come back to your channel once the busy season of your work is done. That's the magic of thinking in a much longer time frame. If you think you're going to make tons of money in 6 months and you'll be able to quit your job in 6 months, well, you're going to get really disappointed when that doesn't happen. It's likely not going to happen. And you'll quit because it doesn't align with your expectations. The next mini idea here is to double your project timelines. So basically, on a smaller scale, what are the projects you're going to work on for the next few months? How long do you think they'll take to complete? Now, with that number in your head, double the length. So following the same YouTube channel example, here are the books that I'm planning to read over the next few months, and I hope to publish videos at least once a week. Before I started doing any of this, I thought I could publish twice a week, but that's just crazy for me. Once a week is much more manageable, and I even allow myself once every 2 weeks if I need to get through a thicker and more difficult book. And on my other channel, the content is so much more difficult to make, so I've never, not once, promised my viewers I'd post every week or even every month or every 2 months. I just kind of like do the work day after day consistently, and I just publish whenever I'm ready, without the stress of, self-imposed deadlines. It's just so much more enjoyable that way. The next mini suggestion here is to simplify your workday. This is the smallest timescale of this discussion of taking longer to do your work. Cal suggests 2 things here: reduce the number of tasks and the number of appointments. Take a look now at your to-do list for tomorrow, and then cut away 25 to 50% of it. As for appointments, make sure that no more than half the hours in every day is dedicated to meetings or calls. And of course, if everything fails and you've made mistakes, remember to forgive yourself. The first video that I ever produced back in, I think, 2020, for my first ever YouTube channel took 6 months. I honestly didn't know what I was doing, and I'm kind of a perfectionist, and the video flopped in the end. It didn't do well, not for the amount of effort and time that I put in. 4 years later, it's gotten less than 30k views and only slightly over $100. That's way lower than the average on my channel right now. And I was really disappointed, but I took some time to think things through. I wrote up some reflections on it, and I got better going forward. And my channel today produces enough to cover my editor's salary and also my very basic living expenses, which is very nice. The second proposition here is to embrace seasonality, in which you vary the intensity and focus of your efforts throughout the year. The first mini point here is to schedule slow seasons, and here's how Cal recommends doing it. You know the whole trend about quiet quitting? Here's what Cal recommends to quiet quit: a single season each year before returning without fanfare to a more normal pace. For this idea to work as a cubicle worker, arrange for major projects to wrap up before your self-proclaimed off-season, and wait to initiate new projects only after your off-season ends. The key here is to choose a deflection project that doesn't require a lot of collaboration, meetings, or urgent messages. Solo writing or research projects work pretty well here, and you can use this project to deflect new work that actually comes your way. For myself, since now my other YouTube channel is ticking along nicely, I've decided to slow down a little bit, and this year I've taken about 5 weeks off. I have another 2-ish week break coming up in December to slow down a little bit before I come out the gate swinging again in January. The second mini point here is to define a shorter work year, which to me felt like a very similar point to the first. So moving on to the third mini point, we've got implementing small seasonality, and that's varying your intensity at even smaller timescales, like weekly timescales. There are more subpoints here, so we've got no meeting Mondays, which is self-explanatory. Next up, we've got see a matinee once a month. Basically, watching a movie on a weekday afternoon is just such a cool concept that resets your mind and shakes you loose from the standard state of anxiety. We've also got scheduled rest projects where you pair each major work project with a corresponding rest project for you to recover. And finally, we've got worked in cycles where you work intensively for maybe like a 6-week period and then follow it up with a 2-week cool down recover period. The third and last proposition for this principle is to work poetically. Honestly, I kind of found like this doesn't really apply to me very much, but I'll just quickly go through it anyway. We've got match your space to your work. So, Dan Brown, the Da Vinci Code, his space is full of like trapdoors and secret rooms and stuff like that. Next, we have strange is better than stylish. So Cal gives examples of writers in cheap hotel rooms, furnace factories, and even garden sheds. And rituals should be striking, so basically create your own personal rituals that work best for you. And this takes us to the last principle of slow productivity, obsess over quality, and that's covered in chapter 5. There are 2 ways an obsession with quality supports the rejection of pseudo-productivity. It both demands and enables slowness. First, identify what it is you need to obsess over. For a content creator like I am now, content creator, it's these videos or blog posts that I produce. As a credit analyst that I used to be, it would be the credit reports that I used to produce. And for an academic like Cal, it would be research papers. Now, why does it demand slowness? Because once you commit to doing something very well, you have no time for mindless busy work. For myself, 90% of my time is spent creating these videos. I hardly ever have time to reply email or spend time in meetings with my editor. Both of us are just always creating and creating. And why does it enable slowness? Basically, as you get better and more skilled, you can charge more and work less while still making a very comfortable living. Cal gives 2 propositions here to help us obsess over quality. The first is to improve your taste. To understand what this means, read page 183 here. I'll leave it on the screen here for you to pause the video and read, and I highly recommend that you do so. But basically, a short summary of it is that taste is a visceral intuition. You know instinctively what's quality and what isn't. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But there's a gap. For the first couple of years that you're making stuff, what you're making isn't so good. So put yourself on a deadline so that every week or every month, you're going to finish 1 story. And only by going through a volume of work that you're actually going to catch up and close the gap between your ability and your taste, and the work you're making will be as good as your ambitions. Basically, quality. So here's the first bonus point to you that Cal didn't highlight as a mini idea, but as a creative, I thought it was important to share. Use quantity to get to quality. You can't get to quality just by thinking about the work that you want to do. If you're a writer, you have to write to know what's quality. If you're a YouTuber, you have to post videos to know what's quality. You have to do the thing over and over again to know what's quality. The next mini idea is to become a cinephile. Cal has always been a fan of movies and has more recently started reading up essays and reviews on them. He said that this has helped him better appreciate the films he watches, and even though it seemingly has nothing to do with his writing career, it actually started affecting the way he thought about his own writing. Essentially, the basis of this idea is to immerse yourself in fields that are different from your own, because you may find little nuggets of wisdom that connects this seemingly unrelated field to the one that you're in right now. Next up, we have Start Your Own Inklings. The Inklings is a writing and discussion club started by C.S. Lewis and later joined by J.R.R. Tolkien. And it was from this club that Lewis started writing the Chronicles of Narnia and Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings. The gist of it is that by surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals or professionals, be it writers or YouTubers or filmmakers, this helps improve your taste because you'll have lots more different ideas and feedback to work off. The last mini idea here is to buy a $50 notebook. $50 was the amount that Cal paid for his lab notebook a few years ago, and it was a lot to him at the time. The cost of the notebook made him then more careful about what he wrote inside the notebook, forcing him to be more structured and careful in his thinking. If you're a writer, you could consider a professional writing software like Scrivener, or if you're a podcaster, buy a $300 podcasting mic. Or if you're a YouTuber, buy a new professional camera. Not that I recommend doing that. I've been on YouTube for more like 3 years now, and I've never used anything apart from this iPhone right here. But this is just the general idea. Arguably, it's a signal to the individual that you're taking their pursuit more seriously. The next point Cal touches on is the fine line between quality and perfectionism. How do you balance the two? He recommends that you should give yourself enough time to produce something great, but not unlimited time. Focus on creating something good enough to catch the attention of those whose taste you care about, but relieve yourself of a need to forge a masterpiece. Progress is what matters, not perfectionism. This is so insanely true, and I honestly think that as a creative, this was my biggest takeaway from the book. For myself, remember how I told you that each of my big YouTube projects on my other channel takes about 2 months each? I once tried to get everything perfect, and that took me a whopping 6 months. It wasn't worth it. After that, I tried to overcompensate, giving myself just 1 month for each project, and I found that it made me feel very stressed and very suffocated. Essentially, I found a sweet spot, which is about 2 months, sometimes a little bit more, and allows me to work on each of my projects at a very natural pace and still produce a really high quality video in the end. So I'm giving myself enough time, but not unlimited time, and that is the key here. The next proposition here is to bet on yourself. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as dropping out of college to start your own tech startup like Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg. You just need to place yourself in a situation where there's a little bit of pressure to succeed, and that can accelerate the quality of your work. And here, Cal gives 4 mini suggestions for pushing yourself to a new level without making yourself unnecessarily busy. First, right after the kids go to bed, like what many authors like Stephanie Meyer have done in their books, like Meyer's Twilight series have gone on to become huge hits. And I know this is rather arguable, but honestly, I really love Twilight. I have all the books, and I watched all the movies twice over. The point here is that this is an approachable strategy for betting on yourself by temporarily dedicating significant amounts of free time to the project in question. Second, we have reduced your salary, which is a little higher in stakes. The plan here isn't to quit your job to pursue your passions though. The plan here is to wait until you have concrete evidence. First, does your new interest have people willing to give you money for it? And second, can you replicate the result? In entrepreneurship, this might mean your business generates a steady stream of sales. As for myself, I did YouTube for about a full year before I quit my job to pursue it full-time. I quit my job shortly before becoming monetized, after which I started earning like a couple $100s a month. And it's been growing ever since. After that, you can reduce your hours or take an unpaid leave, and this harnesses the motivation driven by the fact that you really need this pursuit to work out. Third, the next suggestion is to announce a schedule. If you announce your work, you'll create expectations, and if you fail to produce something notable, you'll pay a social cost in terms of embarrassment, which is a powerful motivator. And fourth, attract an investor. When someone invests into your project, you'll experience motivation to pay back their trust, and you'll work harder to make that happen. Now check out this video on the screen somewhere here for the best books on productivity so far. It's not done yet because I still have a lot more reading to do to make that happen, but it'll be up when it's ready. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in that one.